Good evening, y'all. Welcome to the Spiritual Speakeasy, where the bar is always open and the spirits are always served. I have not been on recently, had a lot going on. Life has been going on, and hanging with the family and doing some investigations and doing some work. And tonight we are back at our newly scheduled time, which is 9 p.m. on a Saturday evening. Tonight, I wanted to talk to you all about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. Excuse me. And I wanted to name this episode The Devil Has a Screenwriter. One of the things I'm fascinated with is horror movies and TV shows, anime that has rituals in it and things that seem to use a lot of symbolism or sigils or even referencing real legit ceremonies. And does that really induce something because they were using a real ceremony in it? So I thought I would talk about that tonight, using real rituals and real demons, Hollywood magic. What happens when sacred practice becomes entertainment? And to me, this is like a big deal. And the thinking behind this is that the film and television industry routinely borrows genuine information from different religions and ceremonial magic. Grimoires, folk traditions, voodoo, Yoruba, Christianity, Judaism, mysticism, Asian spirit traditions, and demonology. And with that, then, they reproduce it. And sometimes they reproduce it accurately, and sometimes they reproduce it inaccurately. One never knows which way they're going to go with it. And if you don't know the rituals, you really don't know what's going on with that particular reproduction. Sometimes they alter it on purpose. Sometimes they don't alter it at all. And sometimes they combine 6 unrelated traditions and hope nobody notices because they really do not know what is going on with that. But the uncomfortable question still remains: when somebody reproduces pieces of an actual ritual without believing they're performing a ritual, what exactly have they done? Have they actually done that ritual? And underneath that, does the ritual require specific attention and intention, or can it correct the action itself? Meaning, going through and having actors light candles and actors draw things out, does that actually induce the ceremony or call in what they're talking about calling in? Or does it take more intention, or does it take other specific things to go along with it? And that's where I intend to go with this tonight. So, have you ever sat there and you're watching, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, or any series, any movie that's a horror movie, and they're drawing things out, and you go, wait, like if you're a witch, you're going to go, wait, what the fuck, man? That's like a real thing. I've done that shit before. I know those words. And so I want to start with that. You're sitting there and you're watching this show, not calling anybody out because I love all the shows. But think about that moment where you're a practitioner and you're listening or you're watching and you go, I know that sigil. I know what they're doing. It's a spooky thing. They've got the candles lit. And you're going, I know what that is. Wait a minute. And you go through that file in your brain and you realize, okay, that's an entity they're calling in. There's that sigil right there. And they may actually use that entity's name, as they did in Sabrina. Hail Satan. They made that comment and they had his sigil there. Maybe it's even set up for the structure of an offering. Like, you watch actors, it's not real blood, but you watch them go through the blood ceremonies, the food. The candles are lit. They're the appropriate colors. They've drawn the circle chalk line, whatever. They may use thresholds. Maybe it's a spirit house. Maybe it's a form of divination where they're sitting around and they're reading tarot, or they're doing, how about this, a seance on the show, right? And they're knocking and they're making the calls, and everything is done as in ritual calling. Everything is perfect ritual way. Maybe it's even a ritual possession, as in the Pope's Exorcist. When they did the seance and they put right off the bat in the beginning, they put the demon into a goat and then shot the goat. And then he denied that it was an exorcist. He went on to say that sometimes you just have to be dramatic to appease people. Maybe it's a Catholic prayer they use. Maybe it's an un-Catholic prayer that they use. Like in Satanism, maybe it's the backwards prayer, or it's, geared towards the other chief god. Maybe it's ceremonial magic. Maybe it's just the language. Maybe it's done in Latin and you didn't even catch it. That could be. Maybe it's something borrowed from Voodoo or other African or diasporic religions. And suddenly the question isn't, why did Hollywood invent this? It's, where the fuck did Hollywood get it? That's what I want to get into tonight. 3 categories I'm going to use all night. Authentic source, which is something that genuinely exists in a religious, magical, folklore, or historical source. Hollywood adaptation, something that was real, that was taken and substantially changed for storytelling. The Conjuring House, The Exorcist. Those are the 2 that come to mind right now. And then Hollywood bullshit. Somebody in a wardrobe, I can't speak tonight. Somebody in a wardrobe found a goat skull and apparently decided that Satan had entered the building. That kind of Hollywood shit. So, with that being said, what actually makes something a ritual? Before asking whether Hollywood performs rituals, define the damn word ritual, because everybody has a different definition or different use for the word ritual. We constantly perform rituals. Everybody performs rituals. Whether you're religious, whether you're spiritual, whether you're not, you do rituals every day. People get married. That's a ritual. Funerals are rituals. Communion, baptism, prayer, initiation, a military ceremony, graduation, Masonic lodges, ancestor offerings, divination, consecration, spirit work. Also, hand washing after you go to the bathroom, hand washing before you prep a meal. Those are all rituals. People don't think about that. Following a recipe is following a ritual. Takes it completely out of spiritual context. So when you think about that, at its simplest, a ritual is a structured or symbolic action performed within a meaningful framework. So when you think about that, washing your hands before you prep food is a structured action performed in a meaningful framework. You're washing your hands to get the germs off of them before you touch the food that you're going to eat and cook. So that removes it completely from religion for people who don't buy into this whole framework. Spirit traditions have different requirements, though. Most of us will say, intention might be required. You have to be in the right mindset. You have to be ready to believe in something and call that in or expel that. Suppose somebody has absolutely no belief system whatsoever. They can obtain the correct materials. They can draw the chalk outlines and the sigils. They can stand in the X that's been prescribed for them to stand on during the filming or whatever of this thing. They can perform every physical action accurately, speak every word perfectly, at the correct time, moving the correct direction, but they're filming a movie. Would you say then that they performed a ritual? Different traditions will give you different answers to that, and that's where it gets really interesting and delicious. The actor problem. An actor portrays a Catholic priest and recites an actual prayer. Did he really pray? Interact with me. Answer that. Somebody send me a message, like a comment on this. If a priest, an actor playing a priest, says a prayer on TV, did he actually pray? Most people are going to probably say not necessarily. He acted, but he said the prayer. So in turn, was there any intention with that? Was the message sent? Did the energy flow for the message to be sent? Food for thought. Next thought. An actor performs a historically documented invocation from an occult text word for word. Now people get a little uncomfortable. And again, I'm going to take you to Sabrina. I'm not picking on Sabrina. I love that show. But there was a lot of very accurate spell work and accurate things that were being said. So let's just take that because it was a fun show. If the actors and actresses performed a historically documented invocation from an occult text word for word, did they actually perform the invocation? And why do people get uncomfortable with that question? Because it's entertainment. It's supposed to be entertaining us. But what if these TV shows are really calling things in? Because it's a possibility that they are. What if they really are? What if, just say what if an actor says wedding vows to another actor? Are they married? But it's a ceremony, right? It's a ceremony. And with it being a ceremony, did they not actually repeat those words? So where does reality stop and where does it start? They are not actually married because there's no legal paperwork on it, and they are acting, right? Because legal marriages require what? Authority, context, intention, not just the correct words. Let's say an actor receives a pretend invitation. This is all on a TV show. Actor standing there on the movie or video, they receive an invitation to an initiation into a religion using reconstructed initiation imagery. Meaning, let's say somebody was called into, a voodoo ceremony. Or maybe they were called into a church and they're going to receive a baptism. And they show up, and this is all film. This is not real. This is film. These are actors and actresses. But the words that are spoken are the real words from the service that's being used. Most people would say, practitioners would say, many initiatory traditions, this is just a reproduction, and absolutely fucking not. This is not real. Who decided whether it was real or not? It was taken from a real ritual, right? word for word, because ritual is not just choreographed. It's not just a speak the word and it's going to happen. It takes a little more than that. Maybe there needs to be authority. Maybe there needs to be lineage. Maybe there needs to be a consecration of something real, not fake plastic. There needs to be intention, relationship, preparation, specific participants, specific sacred materials. Sacred not meaning movie props. And knowledge that isn't publicly available. Therefore, reproducing ritual imagery isn't necessarily equivalent to performing the ritual it represents. But hang on a minute. Here comes a harder question. What if some traditions believe certain words and names and sacred actions possess power independent of the performer's understanding? Now, what does that mean? It means we're going to go down a deep rabbit hole. That's what it means. What it means is there are beliefs in the metaphysical world that when you speak certain words, whether you intend to or not, remember, I always talk about thought, word, and deed. You speak it whether you mean it or not, you have just put it into motion. So if you're speaking it and you're putting it into motion, then are those actors and actresses in effect putting that ceremony or that surface, that action, that ceremony, that purpose, are they not putting that into action? They're saying it with intention, not intention to invoke, but intention to get their lines delivered in a way that's believable. And is that not invocation in itself? If I'm saying something that's so believable that the people watching it at home on their TVs or in the movie theaters are going, whoa, shit, that was some real shit. That was far out. They just put their intention into it. So again, before we go down the rabbit hole, let's think about this. What if some of those things on the TV screen, the movie screen, have taken traditions that believe that particular words and names and sacred actions possess power independent of the performer's understanding? Hey, Jay, good to see you. Yeah, I think it is a good question because we see this all the time. And now we've just dropped down a huge rabbit hole, right? We're chasing rabbits tonight. Go demonology, Hollywood's demon library. Audiences often assume Hollywood invented demon names. No, they didn't. Long before Hollywood. Take Paimon. Hereditary made Paimon famous to audiences who had never opened up a grimoire. But Paimon appears in demonological texts long predating Arioster. Likewise, Belial, Asmodeus, Astaroth, Baal, Bauer, Stolas. Many others appearing in popular media have histories extending far, far beyond their current fictional representations. Asmodeus. He's not simply the sexy demon from modern occult TikTok. He's not, believe it or not, people listening, he's not a TikTok-generated demon that everybody wants to hook up with. His liturgy and literary history goes back much, much further. Notably, let me speak English here, notably appearing as himself in the Book of Tobit. Later demonic or demonological traditions developing additional characteristics. Now, Hollywood inherits centuries of reinterpretation. What's important to know with this is audiences assume there's one canon, this is a hard word to say, canonical demonology. There isn't. What that means is there's not just one text related to demons. There's like all religions have their demons. Later religious interpretation will add something. Ancient texts say something else. Medieval, early, modern demonology adds another layer to it. Grimoires systematize things in a completely different manner. Modern occultism reinterprets again and again and again. TikTok, wonderful TikTok, then makes him your emotionally unavailable demon boyfriend, as does AI and all the other things that you can buy into. By the time the audience meets the entity, they're sometimes encountering 2,000 years of theological telephone. Now, remember being a kid and playing the telephone game, right? Where they line up 20 kids and the teacher whispers in the first one's ear and it goes all the way down. And by the time it gets to the last person, it's a completely different message. So imagine meeting something for the first time in 2026 on TikTok. Jay's saying, can just saying a demon's name during an investigation actually conjure that demon? Can it? I would say it depends on interpretation. It depends on what you're wanting, intention, interpretation. What are you going for? What do I personally believe, Jay? I think, yeah, I think if you say it, you can invoke it, but I think it depends on your intention. I mean, I call in things all the time. I love to call in things. I mean, I work with angels and demons, and I have pocket friends of all kinds. So if they talk to me, I think it's absolutely wonderful. And for when people buy tickets to investigations, if I can call something in for them to get to talk to, I think it's great. Can just saying their name do it? I think sometimes it can. It depends, again, on who's doing it. And you also have to realize, and I haven't even brought this up, what state of mind is the actor or actress in when they're doing that? You know, like if they're on drugs, which, you know, the entertainment industry is like any other place. You've got your habits, right? And if somebody's impaired and they're acting that part, does not that possibly weaken that veil? Does that not open that door for something to possibly come in that's on the set or attached to things or even attached to that person? Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that. And I don't think there's too many demonologists that would argue with that. So let's look at the movie Hereditary. Hereditary works beautifully because it uses an entity with a historical demonological precedent, Paimon, while constructing a largely fictional cinematic mythology around him. He was not invented for a movie, people. But Hereditary is not an instructional document on Paimon. Duh, right? I mean, what movie really is, right? Sounds obvious, but on online occult discussions, somebody will say that it does. Someone finds out that Paimon exists in grimoires and concludes, holy shit, that means that the movie's ritual was real. No. People need to start doing more going down rabbit holes and reading and deep diving and investigating themselves. Just because a ritual was used and you find out that Paimon really existed and he was not made up for the movie, the ritual they used does not mean you should go back and copy that ritual and you're going to get the same results. Absolutely not. Historical source for an entity does not equal historical source for every scene involving an entity. And here's the bigger lesson involved in that. Authenticity in one detail can make invented details feel authentic too. Take the movie The Exorcist. There was a lot of real things in there. There was a lot of made up things in there also. So just because some of the stuff was real does not mean the entire movie was real. Filmmakers exploit that constantly. That's their job, right? To make it look real, to make you sit in your chair and believe this is happening. That's entertainment. So oftentimes they'll use one genuine sigil, one genuine name, one authentic Latin phrase, one legitimate occult book. Might have even been bought and or purchased and put on display in that moment. A real grimoire, a real exorcist Bible, whatever. That's a cinematic sleight of hand. That's how they get you. That's that aha moment where you go, damn, that was real. That was cool. So I keep talking about The Exorcist. Let's talk about The Conjuring and the Exorcist problem. Now we're going to lean towards Christianity. Christian rituals appear constantly in horror films. The crucifix, holy water, prayer, blessings, priestly vestments, relics, confessions, exorcisms. How many movies have you seen an exorcism done in? Invocation of Christ. And here's a double standard worth discussing. People frequently worry, what if the movie accidentally performs a demonic invocation? But you don't hear those same people say, what if the movie accidentally performs an exorcism? Whoa, that'd be some wicked shit, right? Why does our culture assume that evil rituals or evil ritual works accidentally when sacred ritual requires belief? Which I think is what Jay was also alluding to when he said, you know, can you invoke something just by calling that name? What about when you say Christ's name? We're invoking that as well, if you're following that belief system. So the question I'm asking is, why does our culture assume evil ritual works accidentally? Whoops, they just summoned something. While sacred ritual beliefs, while sacred rituals require belief. That's a fascinating theological bias. It really is. And if intention doesn't matter for one, then intention should not matter for the other. Right? I mean, that's balance. That's how I see it. It's balance. If spiritual authority matters for an exorcism, could authority also matter for invocation? And if initiation matters in one tradition, wouldn't it also matter in another? This is where Christianity actually strengthens your investigation when we're talking about that. So think about that. If it's required for one, it has to be required for the other. You can't just use it when you want to use it and pick and choose. If intention is required to bring in evil, then intention would be required for the Christian, for the positive things, the blessings and the cool stuff that they do that's positive. But flip that around. If you believe that the person who's acting like the priest says a prayer, then you're not calling anything in unless there's intention. Then how are you calling something in when the demon worker's calling in the demon? Because there's no intention. You can't pick and choose which side you want it to be on. It has to be one or the other. Now, we've already established that the horror movies, they cross a lot of lines when it comes to spirituality, and they take a lot of things. But one of the things that's huge is the horror industry's voodoo problem. And I'm going to get serious about this because I have been initiated in voodoo. Hollywood has absolutely shaped, I'm going to sneeze, sorry. Hollywood has absolutely shaped the public perception of voodoo. Think about what comes to mind when you think of voodoo. And anybody's welcome to join in on a new format. We've been shaped, those people who have not been initiated or have no idea. There's going to have to be a doll, right? There's going to be pins. There's going to be a curse of some kind. There's going to be a zombie. God knows, serpent in the rainbow, the goofer dust. The snake. There's always a snake in voodoo, right? Always a snake. Blood, possession, got to have a graveyard, got to have somebody dead or nearly dead or brain dead. Some of those things have relationships to actual historical practices or folklore. Others have been exaggerated and conflated or completely detached from their religious context. And the result is really important. Entertainment can transform another person's sacred tradition into someone else's monster. That's a form of influence that we don't have to speculate about. It happened culturally. Look at the colonial missionary issue. When European and Christian interpreters encountered African religions, they often interpreted unfamiliar spiritual beings through Christian categories. Meaning, if you're not Christian, you're pagan. If it's not a spirit, that's a Christian spirit, as in an angel, it's a demon. Or if it's a ghost, it's a demon. A spirit possession is always demonic. Divination is a form of sorcery. An offering is a sacrifice to demons only. And then Hollywood inherited those same categories. Eshu, for one. Eshu is a perfect discussion. It's frequently mistranslated into representing the devil or Satan. But what people don't realize is it's imposing a Christian category onto Yoruba's cosmology. And that distorts everything. Because now imagine millions of people seeing an African spiritual symbol in horror and being taught emotionally, this is evil. The movie didn't summon a demon. It did something demonstrably powerful. It rewrote a culture inside the viewer's imagination. And to me, that's horrible. It was taken out of context. It was made bad. It was made scary. It turned people off from learning about something, or people who are ignorant use that thinking that they can copy something that's negative and use it in a racist or an anti-Semitic way. And that's not all the case because it wasn't even real information. Possession is another whole thing. One word, very, very different things. Hollywood has one model of possession. Something enters a person, the person loses control, person becomes terrifying. Priest practitioner arrives at said house with said person who has had said terrifying thing enter them, and a battle occurs. The entity exits, and the credits roll. Every horror movie that's out there, or if there's going to be a part 2, the entity may not exit, but same scenario, right? that is predominantly influenced by a Christian demonological model. But spirit possession and trance has completely different meanings across cultures. In some religions, spirit possession can be ritually structured and culturally meaningful. It doesn't mean that the alter state is supernatural. It means that the culture interpretation isn't automatically a demon got inside of you. You go to heavy Pentecostal churches where people take in the spirit and they dance and they speak in tongues. That's not a demon getting inside of them. In Voodoo, oftentimes the spirits come down and they mount. We call it a mounting, where a person has the spirit come inside of them and the spirit makes messages known to other people around. That in itself is not the demonic possession that we're seeing in movies. So now we have to talk about the difference in a possession and a spirit entity understood as taking significant control. The person being in a trance. The person in an altered state of consciousness. A medium, a psychic medium who sits down and they channel and they speak for a spirit or give a message for, or they interpret through. Not possession, but channeling. Having spirits alter a state of consciousness, or the person altering their own state of consciousness in order to speak for that spirit. A modern umbrella term often used for receiving information attributed to another intelligence or source. Channeling. Not possession, but channeling. Invocation. Calling something inward towards oneself in a magical system. Invocation. Evocation, traditionally often distinguished as calling a spirit forth rather than into oneself. So you're calling it to step forward, but you're not calling it inside yourself. So evocation or evocation, depending on what part of the country you're in, is different than invocation, because invoking actually is calling something into you. So when somebody speaks and they say, oh, they invoked that spirit, they're probably meaning evoked that spirit. Because like on the paranormal shows, they use the word, you're invoking the name of, or you're invoking this. No, you're really evoking that. You're calling it. You want it to step forward. You want it to talk to you. You're not asking it to come into you. Well, and maybe they are. Sometimes they do those things. Come into me, come touch me, come step in, you can use me. That would be invocation. Evocation is just calling it forward. Dissociation is a psychological phenomena involving disruptions in your consciousness, identity, memory, and perception. These are all not synonyms. They're not synonyms. And yet, horror fucking loves to collapse them into one big thing in the movie scene. That's what Hollywood does. What happens when someone learns their entire vocabulary for spiritual experiences from horror movies? Holy shite. We have a big cesspool. Hi, Christy. Invocation, you are welcome. Yes, exactly. You're welcoming that entity to enter you. Invocation. We're invoking it. Correct. Absolutely. You are a conduit. Yes, which all humans are, but some humans don't realize that yet. And some humans don't realize that they're doing that unintentionally, and they do it. Absolutely. So what happens when people, get on TikTok? I love TikTok. I am a TikToker. I have a TikTok account. But what happens when somebody learns their entire spiritual vocabulary and their whole spiritual existence based on horror movies? It's bad. I'm just saying it's bad. They may interpret every altered state through a possession. Hey. And why? Blood. Blood is another thing. I'm moving fast through these topics to get this in tonight. But Hollywood fucking loves blood. Everything has blood in it, right? Blood carries a huge, and I'm going to do an episode on blood. I'm going to do a whole podcast on blood. Blood carries such an enormous symbolic weight in almost every culture. Words are powerful. They're affirmations and intentions. And that, Christy, that's perfect. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this tonight was, in Hollywood, are the words that are being used on set and on script, like when they do ceremonies and they do these things, are they really invoking spirit? Are they really, because the rituals that they take may be actually real rituals. Hitchcock said horror movies are based on real life. I think, yeah, and a lot of the ceremonies are taken from real ceremonies. So that's the whole purpose of this tonight, is where is it real and where is it not? And does there have to be intention? Because some people believe that that words have power and meaning even if you don't mean them. And there's a lot of cultures and a lot of traditions and a lot of spiritualities that believe that words have power, even if you didn't mean it. If you speak it, you done sent that energy out there and it's like gonna manifest. Blood carries enormous symbolic weight across cultures. Life, death, kinship, sacrifice, covenant, purity, impurity, violence, birth, mortality. Christianity, use words tonight. Christianity itself centers around blood imagery, the blood of Christ. So the blood isn't inherently dark, right? It's the blood of Christ. Context determines the meaning of whether blood is good or bad, positive or negative. But horror has conditioned audiences to think differently. Person cuts their palm in ceremony. They drip the blood into the symbol. Oh, fuck, something's coming, right? It's coming. We know it's going to be there. They just brought something in. And yet, the body and blood of Christ. Why? Because blood communicates cost. Blood communicates cost. Something irreversible happened. The character did not immediately and merely say words. They gave something. Christy says, I'm O positive. I love that. They gave something of themselves. And that is absolutely fantastic storytelling. Yet, don't we do that? Yep, left palm. Don't we do that in rituals? Now, some of you guys aren't witches. Some of you guys don't know what's done in rituals. But when we drip something into something, that's what we're doing, right? We're binding ourselves to that spell work or to that sigil. And what people don't always understand, and this is my spiritual belief, maybe not other people's, but once you commit with that blood, you have just linked every fucking generation from yours on. It's a DNA thing, man. You have just signed the paperwork for everybody after you and your family to do that. It seals the fate for you and your family. But again, cinematic symbolism, does it or does it not mean automatic magical operation? Just because that actor looked like he took something, I'm just going to pick up something here, and cut their hand, which really they don't do. I hate to say that. They don't. And they drip blood into that sigil, which isn't real blood, but the sigil's real. Did they actually start that process? I'm going to beg to differ, no. But I think, again, it depends on the intention, and it depends on how fucked up in the head, what drugs and alcohol were on board on the set. I think you have to look at all of those things. Mirrors, doors, and thresholds. Oh, you were blood oathed at 3 years old. Family curse continues. I was not blood oathed, but I have since blood oathed. And so my poor family. Yeah. Yeah. I don't like that, the family curse. I don't know whether I would call it a curse or not. It depends on what kind of work you're doing. Mirrors, doors, and thresholds. Why do supernatural stories constantly use... They prick their finger, not their palm. It depends on how much blood you need, Christy. I always say it depends. I mean, I bleed pretty good, but really cutting something is not as harsh as those damn finger pricks. Those hurt for days. They're like paper cuts. It's a little trivial thing, like, using a blood glucose thing to elicit a teeny drop of blood, like, hurts for a week. Why do supernatural stories constantly use mirrors, doors, windows, crossroads, staircases, wells, caves, forests, bridges? Because they're liminal spaces. They represent not here and not there. They represent inside and outside, living and dead, known and unknown, self and other. Mirrors are particularly powerful. The eyes are mirrors too. They are. That's a very good point. Thank you. Yeah, the eyes are definitely mirrors. Mirrors are particularly powerful because they're simultaneously the object and the reflection and apparent space. You're looking into a flat surface and you perceive another room. No wonder cultures develop supernatural folklore around them. But here's the critical distinction. The psychological symbolism of a mirror in a mirror is demonstrable. Whether a mirror is literally a supernatural portal is a whole separate claim. You can talk about whether it's a portal or it's a symbolic thing without confusing those. And that's where you need to stop and reflect and think about what it is that you're doing. Yeah, most of us believe that mirrors are multidimensional. But you also have to do your research and you have to understand why that belief is so in different cultures, because there's many cultures that don't believe that as well. I believe there's more cultures out there and more spiritualities or religions out there that do believe that they're dimensional or multidimensional than there are that don't. When you think about vanity, it's not just vanity looking in the mirror. There's things that look back. Like the Amish, old traditional Amish orders don't have eyes on dolls. And it gets in, that is a whole thing about seeing and being vessels, and mirroring. The eyes mirror the soul, and they reflect. So when you get into those things, there's a lot of reasons that people have that. And there is a lot of superstition about that. But you need to think intelligently about that and not just accept the folklore that said movie has told you. Because that's a thing. Now, going past it, and I'm skimming these superficially for tonight's discussion. Christy says it's our intention in everyday life that predicts what happens. Yeah, I believe that too. I do. But I also think if you flat out say something ignorant and it's not nice, sometimes you're putting that out there into the universe, whether you meant to or not. And I think when you do that, we cause harm and damage vibrationally. Going hard into occult thinking, when we talk about sigils and symbols or even phone numbers, right? In ceremonial magic and related occult traditions, sigils and seals can identify or represent spirits and intentions. We know that. Hollywood loves them because they're visually beautiful and they're visually perfect. Right? They're symmetrical. They show up really nice on the camera. And because Christianity has such a, what's the word I want to, bias against those things. You know, if you're drawing anything besides the cross, you're probably doing something wrong, demonic, left-handed, otherworldly. But so it affects people. Like when you see somebody draw a sigil, even if it's just a basic pentagram, everybody goes, oh shit, here it comes. It's bad. This is going to be bad. Something's going to happen in the movie. This person's going to get possessed. Does looking at a sigil constitute contact? If yes, the occult history books would be extraordinarily hazardous objects. How many times do you go into a bookstore or a junk shop or wherever, and there's things that have sigils on the front of them? We'd all be fucking possessed if that was the case. Clearly, practitioners generally distinguish between seeing, studying, displaying, using, consecrating, now we're upping it here, and ritually activating and working with a symbol. That's useful, right? Because it destroys the simplistic. There's a demon sigil in that show, therefore they summoned it. Just because you see the sigil there does not mean it's summoned. Maybe not. But then let's ask another question. Can a symbol alone, influence someone without being magically activated? It's an interesting thought. By drawing a symbol, anybody drawing a sigil or a symbol, let's don't even call it a sigil. Let's just call it a symbol. Can that magically activate? Does the symbol itself have enough influence, enough power to activate itself? Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you why I think that way. Look at the swastika. It produces a huge emotional reaction. Look at the cross. For some people, it elicits a huge emotional reaction. Look at the national flag of any country. And for those citizens in that country, it will elicit a huge emotional response, as does a wedding ring. Symbols carry learned meaning. And once that meaning is learned, it's there, right? That's the real power without requiring the supernatural mechanics. So let me go back and ask, if a sigil or a symbol is used in a movie, does it not have power on its own? And if you've noticed, I've completely circled the topic. I'm not saying yes or no. I'm saying think about this in the whole perspective of everything. Does it actually have that much power? So I want to stop there, and I want to go back, and I want to think. I want to go backwards now. If excuse me, I've talked for an hour. If a symbol elicits that kind of emotional response and has that kind of power, then go back. Thank you, Christy. Then go back to that original thing, the original question when I talked about Hollywood and I talked about the power that Hollywood has and the devil has a screenwriter. And when you're borrowing in film context, in TV context, genuine materials from various religions and ceremonial magic and grimoires and folk traditions, Voodoo or Yoruba, Christianity, mysticism, Asian spirit traditions, and demonology, and it's reproduced accurately. Keyword reproduced accurately. Have we performed a ritual? When somebody reproduces pieces of an actual ritual without believing they're performing a ritual, what exactly have they done? And then the second question that I asked was, does the ritual require intention, or can correct action itself carry significance? By drawing that sigil or drawing that symbol, did we in fact connect with something? Did we open the doorway to something that we shouldn't have or should have? Christy says watching a movie can influence us as well. Absolutely, the energy. And that's the whole purpose of this. Can it or will it not? Because the controversy out there is movies are getting more and more detailed. Even though they lump a whole lot of things together, they're getting more and more detailed, and they're using more and more correct rituals because they're out there now. Internet has made these things available in communication with these things. Chat GPT, all these different things have done that. So then when they draw that circle and they draw whatever they're invoking inside that circle, even if it's just for the purpose of filming a movie, did they call something in? And by you watching it on a TV screen, not even being there, but you're watching it and you're seeing that sigil, does that energy come through? I think so. I think, Christy, I totally agree with you. I think there are times when, hell yeah, I think we've let things in and we've brought things in by doing it. I do. And I think it's foolish to think that we're not doing that. You know, and I do it. I'm like, I'm not being hypocritical here at all. These are things that I do. Some of these are ceremonies that I do, and I invoke things and absolutely. But I think it's food for thought. And so I'm going to end tonight with that thought, and I want people to think about that and DM me or make comments on this video or send requests for other things, because I've got a lot of rabbit holes to go down in regards to this. Christy says, oh my God, yes, the rituals are absolutely real. Hollywood has done it now. And Jay says intention is a key. A sex scene infers something, but usually it's just acting. But then like Helter Skelter and the people that it does open doorways for. And think about the things that happen to the actors and actresses that are filming these shows. And think about the I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, think about that when I just lost my thought. Think about the things that have happened on movie sets and to the actors and actresses themselves that have played these parts. And when you start researching things like that, you cannot help but sometimes think there is a link. And again, a lot of the actors and actresses may or may not be impaired during the filming of these things. And I think anytime you introduce drugs and alcohol to a scenario when you're doing rituals and sigils, whether it's, on command with a script or you're doing it by yourself, there's consequences. And just as I said that, Chrissy says actions have consequences when you're reenacting a ritual. I think they do. I do believe they do. So with that, I am going to leave tonight's discussion, and I'm going to continue part 2 next Saturday. So those of you that are on or have found this interesting, please join me next Saturday for part 2 of this. And we're going to go down deeper into the rabbit hole. And for those that have been joining in with this conversation, thank you so much. It really makes it easier to do a podcast when I have people communicating with me, and it also makes it a lot more fun. I appreciate that. How many great actors became oh my gosh, who they're playing. Yes. And lost themselves, totally lost themselves. And that's not even getting into the actors who are wearing skin suits that are actors within actors. And like, that's another whole thing right there. But for sure, Linda Blair acting in the, yes. Yeah. Well, a lot of the people who play possessed people and where things have been called in have had real life and death experiences with some really nasty things. Really nasty. And then just look at the music industry as well. I mean, that's like going down another whole track, which I intend to also go down in one of these pods. So I bid you all good night. Sweet dreams. Yes. Heck, I'm getting movies, people, Hannibal and Ed Gein. Yeah, Gein. Exactly. Thank you all for joining me tonight. See you next week at 9 p.m. on Saturday night for another amazing discussion going down this rabbit hole of does rituals in Hollywood, do they actually require intention, or can the correct action itself carry significance? Join me again next Saturday night at 9 p.m. on the Spiritual Speakeasy, where the bar is always open and all spirits are always served. I thank you all because I would not be here if it wasn't for you. Thank you for joining me. It's been a wonderful night. See you guys again. Good night. Good night, lovely. See y'all.